So we want to convert millimeters squared to nanometers squared. So again, the process will take millimeters squared, convert it to the base unit, and then convert it to nanometers squared. And remember that milli is bigger than nano, so we're going from a large metric prefix to a smaller metric prefix, or our exponent should increase. And so what we know from our metric chart is that 1 millimeter, 10 to the negative 3 meters, and 1 nanometer, 10 to the negative 9 meters. So this is what you get from the metric table. But we don't need just millimeter, nanometer, meter. We need millimeters squared, meters squared, nanometers squared. So here we want to square each conversion factor. Remember, when we square, we multiply, so 1 millimeter squared is 1 times 10 to the negative 6 meters squared. 1 nanometer squared. Again, nanometer, 10 to the negative 9th, we square it, we get 1 e to the negative 18 meters squared. So we have our conversion factors in the squared unit. Now we're ready to set up our train tracks. So again, the first is our number that we began with, 3.2 e to the negative 4 millimeters squared. So in our first empty set of train track, to the top left is millimeters squared. So in our conversion from millimeters squared to meters squared, millimeters squared goes on the bottom. Meters squared, not meters squared, 1 e to the negative 6 meters squared goes on top. So this converts millimeters squared to meters squared. Then in our next set of empty train tracks, we want to go from meters squared to nanometers squared. And then again to the top left, you see we have the meters squared. So in that conversion, meters squared goes on the bottom. And nanometers squared goes on top. So we have, so in our answer, the number will be the same. 10 to the negative 4 times 10 to the negative 6. We add exponents. We get 10 to the negative 10. And then we're going to divide that by 10 to the negative 18. So 10 to the negative 10 minus 10 to the negative 18 gives us 3.2 e to the 8th nanometers squared. And you see here, 8 is larger than negative 4, the exponent, so the exponent increase. And so that goes in line with what we said earlier when we were talking about the prefixes. So here, and when I do these dimensional analysis problems, I like to look at, I use a little creativity in creating these problems. So here we have Dustin. This is from Stranger Things. Dustin has 1830 pints of L from the upside down world. How many liters of L does Dustin have? And in these types of problems, if you're given a conversion factor, that's a conversion factor that you have to use when answering the problem. If no conversion factor is given, then you can use whatever conversion factors you want. But since we're given 1 gallon is 3.79 liters, we have to use that when solving the problem. So what the problem is looking for is we're looking for the liters of L. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the liters of L. And we're given pints. Now our conversion factor, gallons to liters, there's no pint in it. So somehow we have to get from pints to liters. And so the missing link between pints and liters is if we take a look at our conversion factor given to us, it says 1 gallon is 3.79 liters. So that's how we're going to go from the English world to the metric world is through gallons. So, and this is based on the conversion factor we're given. So we're given 1 gallon, 3.79 liters. So we're going to go from pints to gallon, or gallons, I should say, and then to liters. So it's a two-step solution. So in order to go from pints to gallons, we have to know the conversion factor. And if you don't know pints, you may say, well, I don't know what pints to gallons are, but I do know, for example, how many pints in a quart. And then I know how many quarts in a gallon. So if you don't know how many pints are in a gallon, it's okay. We know how many pints in a quart, and then we can convert quarts into gallons because we know how many quarts there are in 1 gallon. So I'll do this second route because most people don't know how many pints are in a gallon. Then once we get the gallons, we can convert to liters. We have that conversion factor. So first we want to know how many pints are in a quart. There are 2 pints in 1 quart. Then we need to know how many quarts are in a gallon. 4 quarts equals 1 gallon. And of course, we know that 1 gallon is 3.79 liters. These are the different conversion factors that we need to solve the problem. So now I set up my train track. And so we start with our original number, 1830 pints. Now we want to convert from pints to quarts. So in our empty train track to the top left is pints. So that's going to go on the bottom and from our conversion factor, and quarts on top. So that's step 1, converting from pints to quarts. Now we want to go from quarts to gallons. So in the next empty train track to the top left, we have quarts. So in our conversion, quarts will go on the bottom and gallon will go on top. So now we've converted from quarts to gallon. And we need one more train track. Next, we want to go from gallons to liters. So since in our empty train track to the top left is gallons, in our conversion, gallons will go on the bottom and liters on top. So now if you'll look and notice, every unit cancels out except liters, and that's what you want. So you multiply everything on top and then divide by everything on the bottom. And when you do this, let's see what the calculator tells us. So the calculator tells us 866.9625 liters. Okay, let me go ahead and put this in the calculator. But we're not finished yet since this is an English to metric kind of conversion. Remember, these are measured quantities, so we have to round to the correct number of significant figures based on the number in the operation with the fewest significant figures. So if we look at all of our equalities and our original number, we want to determine which one has the fewest number of significant figures. So we look at our original number, 1830. 1830 has 3 significant figures because this 0 is trailing and there's no decimal point. 2 pints equals 1 quart. This is exact because pints and quarts are in the same system of measurement. So that has an infinite number of significant figures. 4 quarts equals 1 gallon. Again, quarts is English system. Gallon is English system. So this is exact. So it has infinite number of significant figures. 1 gallon to 3.79 liters. Gallon is the English system. Liter is the metric system. So this is not exact. So this one has also 3 significant figures. So since 3 is the fewest significant figures in our numbers that we started with, we need to round this to 3 significant figures. So 1, 2, 3. After the 6 is a 9. So this would round up to 867 liters. So that would be the number of liters in 1830 pints. So here in Middle Earth, Frodo has 6,530 grams of Kreniki bird legs. How many pounds of bird legs does Frodo have? And it's given us the equality, 2.205 pounds is 1 kilogram. And by the way, Kreniki birds are actually in Middle Earth. So if you read up on Lord of the Rings, there is a bird called the Kreniki. Anyway, so what's this looking for? We're looking for the pounds of bird legs. And we're given grams of bird legs. So based on the information given to us and the conversion factors given to us, we have to convert from pounds to grams. And so we start with grams. We need to go to pounds. And in our conversion given to us, it doesn't link pounds and grams directly. It gives us pounds and kilogram. And so if we have the grams, can we go to kilogram? And the answer is yes, because if we know the number of grams, we can convert it to the number of kilograms, and then we can go to pounds. So the middleman here is kilogram. So we'll convert the grams to kilograms and then kilograms to pounds. Again, the reason we have to do this is because the conversion factor given to us is pounds to kilogram. So we should know how many grams are in a kilogram, 1,000. And so now we're able to set up our train track and convert grams to pounds. So we start with our original number, 6,530 grams. In the first empty set of train tracks, we want to go from grams to kilogram. So since we're starting in the top left with grams, it's going to go on the bottom. Kilogram on top. We go to the next set of empty train tracks. We want to go from kilogram to pounds. So right next in the top left to this empty train track is kilogram. So going from kilograms to pounds, a kilogram goes on the bottom, pound goes on top. And notice here, the grams cancel and the kilograms cancel. So all we have left is pounds. So we multiply what's on top, divide by what's on the bottom. And so Mr. Calculator tells us 14.39865. That's a lot of pounds there. Let me fix that. So this is what the calculator gave me. Now, again, we're not finished. We have to round to the correct number of significant figures. So we look at our original number, 6,530. This has 3 significant figures. Again, the 0 is a trailing 0 with no decimal point. It's not significant. 2.205 pounds in a kilogram. This is a measured quantity because kilogram is metric. Pounds is in the English system. So this has 4 significant figures. And then the other conversion factor we use is 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. So gram is metric, kilogram is metric. So this is an exact conversion factor, which means it has an infinite number of significant figures. So we need to round this to 3 significant figures. So 1, 2, 3. After the 3 is a 9. So we round the 3 up to 4. So that's how many pounds of Kraniki legs Frodo has. So here we have in number 3, 11 travels 23,060 yards to visit the head Demogorgon in the upside down world. Should be how many kilometers does 11 travel? And it gives us 3.3 feet is 1 meter. So what are we looking for here? We're looking for kilometers. So how many kilometers did 11 travel? And we're given yards. So somehow we have to go from yards to kilometers. And we're given how many feet are in 1 meter. So this is how we transition from the English world to the metric world. So we're starting with yards. Somehow we need to cross from English to metric. And we need to finally get to kilometers. So this is kind of a rough draft of how we're going to do it. So we know that go from English to metric, we got to go from feet to meters. The question is do we know a conversion between yards and feet? And the answer is yes, we know how many feet are in a yard. So we can go directly from yards to feet. The second question is, do we know how many meters in a kilometer? If that answer is yes, then we can go directly from meters to kilometers. And the answer is yes, we know how many meters are in a kilometer. So we know that 1 yard is 3 feet and 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. So now we can set up our train track to convert from yards to kilometers. So again, we start with our original number, 23,060. And the first thing is to go from yards to feet. So since we're starting with yards on the top left, in our conversion, yard will go on the bottom. Feet will go on top. So that's step one, converting from yards to feet. Step two, we want to go from feet to meters. So since in the top left of the empty train track, we have feet, feet would go on the bottom, and meter will go on top. That's step two, converting feet to meters. Then last, we want to convert meters to kilometers. So in our empty train track to the top left, meters on top. So in our conversion, meter will go on the bottom and kilometer on top. And so we'll notice here that everything cancels except the unit that we want. So we multiply what's on top, divide by what's on the bottom. And we get, Mr. Calculator tells us 20 points. 20.96364 kilometers. But wait, we're not finished. We got to look at the number of significant figures to determine what to round the answer to. So we look at our original number, 23,060. This has 4 significant figures because the trailing 0 here is not significant because there's no decimal point. 3 feet equals 1 meter. Feet is the English system. Meter is the metric system, so this is not exact. So this has 2 significant figures. And then 1 yard is 3 feet. Yard is the English system. Feet is the English system, so this is exact. So infinite. 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. This is also exact. So our answer should be rounded to 2 significant figures. 1, 2. After the 0 is a 9, so we round it up to 21 kilometers. So here we're back to Middle Earth. Bilbo travels 48,050 Rangar. Pardon my English, to Rangar to the Gulf of Linden, from the Gulf of Linden to Mount Doom. If 5,100 Rangar equals 2.9987 miles, how many meters did Bilbo travel? So here what we're looking for is meters. So how many meters did he travel? And we're given Rangar. And that's actually a unit of distance in Middle Earth. So we're starting with meters, or excuse me, starting with Rangar. And somehow have to get to meters. And so Rangar is a Middle Earth unit. So we got to go, how do we get from a Middle Earth unit to a metric unit? And the only link between Middle Earth and, I want to say normal Earth, is that 5,100 Rangar equals 2.9987 miles. And so here from Rangar, we can go to miles. Next, we need to know, can we go from miles to meters? So if you know how many For example, meters in a mile, we can go directly from miles to meters, or you can go from, if you don't know how many meters in a mile, maybe you know how many kilometers in a mile, and then you can go to meters. But we know how many meters are in a mile, so we can go from Rangar to miles to meter. And so 1 mile is 1,600 meters. So this is how we're going to go from Rangar to meters. So we start with our original number, 48,050 Rangar. And now we want to go from Rangar to mile. So since we're in the top left of the empty train track, we have Rangar. So Rangar will go on the bottom. Mile will go on top. That's step one. Step two, we want to go from miles to meters. So in our empty train track, to the top left is mile. So mile will go on the bottom, and meter will go on top. And again, every unit cancels except meter. So we multiply what's on top, divide by what's on the bottom. And Mr. Calculator tells us 45,203.932549 meters. But we're not finished. We have to determine the number of significant figures to round this answer to. So we look at our original numbers, 48,050 has 4 significant figures. Again, this trailing 0 is not significant because there's no decimal point. 5,100 Rangar equal 2.9987 miles. These two units of measurement are not in the same system of measurement. So this would have 2 significant figures. This would have 5 significant figures. And then the other conversion factor we use is 1 mile is 1,600 meters. Again, mile is the English system. Meter is the metric system. Since these are different systems of measurement, this would have 2 significant figures. So we go 1, 2. After the 5 is the 2. So we're just going to drop the 2 and replace everything with trailing zeros. So this would be 45,000 meters. Very important, you just don't put 45 meters, but you replace the 203 with trailing zeros so that you keep the same magnitude of the number. So here in the upside down world, Dustin travels 45,050 tooth to visit D'Artagnan. If one tooth is 3.8 yards, how many miles did Dustin travel? And we're given that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Maybe you didn't pick up on it, but tooth is foot spelled backwards. So if you flip it, you get foot. See, upside down, flip. I came up with that unit myself. Anyways. So we're starting with tooth. And we want to go to miles. And in our conversion factor, we know that how many feet are in a mile. So that's something we know. So in order to get to miles, obviously we're going to have to go through feet because we know how many feet are in a mile. But somehow we got to get from tooth to feet. And if we look at the problem, we know that one tooth is 3.8 yards. So we can get from tooths to yards. And now the question you need to ask is there a way to get from yards to feet? And if the answer is yes, then we can do a direct conversion from yards to feet. And in fact, the answer is yes, because we know that there are 3 feet in a yard. So this is the process we're going to go through to convert tooth into miles. So in addition to the conversion factors given to us in the problem, I'll just write the one tooth 3.8 yards. We need to know how many feet in a yard. So 1 yard, 3 feet. So now we're ready to set up our train track. And solve the problem. So again, our original number goes in the first slot, so 45,050 tooth. Now we want to convert tooths to yards. So in our first empty train track, in the top left is tooth. So in our conversion, tooth goes on the bottom, yard goes on top. That's converting tooths to yards. In our second train track, we want to convert yards to feet. So to the top left of this empty train track is yards. So in our conversion to yards to feet, yard goes on the bottom, feet go on top. So now we converted yards to feet. In our last empty train track, we want to go from feet to miles. So since in the top left of our empty train track is feet, in our conversion, feet go on the bottom and miles on top. So now we're ready to do the calculation. And if you notice, all the units cancel except mile. So we multiply everything on top, divide by what's on the bottom. And Mr. Calculator tells us 97.2670454 miles. So now we're not finished. We need to round to the correct number of significant figures. Our original number has 4 significant figures. In our conversion factor, 1 tooth equals 3.8 yards. So these are 2 different systems of measurement. So this has 2 significant figures. 1 yard is 3 feet. Since yard and feet are both English, this is exact. 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Both of these are in the English system of measurement. This is exact as well. So our answer should be rounded to 2 significant figures. After the 7 is a 2. So we're just going to drop everything. And the answer is 97 miles. So the answer was rounded to 2 significant figures.